Yo, what's goody? What's goody? Latrell in a hoodie. Welcome to another episode of the Brother Next Door podcast, where we talk about finance, personal development, and skills to get you further in life through actual steps and my own personal experiences. In this episode, it is part two of the credit card series, where I'm just taking a step back and just going back to the basics, breaking down credit cards, so you guys get a clearer understanding of how credit cards work. In this episode, we're going to break down a TikTok video of a young lady that didn't understand how credit cards work and how that ended up for her. So we're going to talk about why I use credit cards. We're going to talk about the different types of credit cards, and then we're going to talk about how I personally use my credit cards. So without further ado, let's get right into the video.
With my credit card, I max that out to 4,000.
What do you mean you max it out? Max it out or maxed it out?
So my max, I got confused with the credit debt and the credit limit. So my parents got me a credit card, and I ended up getting a max credit limit of $8,000. So I could spend up to $8,000. That's what that means, right? So I would use it, and I would take my boyfriend. We would just started dating. We would go out.
It's 12,500.
On it now.
Yeah.
Well, when I looked at
Continue.
it last, yeah.
Continue.
Me and my boyfriend, me and my friends, we would go out, and I'm like, oh, I'll pay for everybody. I got it. I'll spend the money. Don't worry about it. It's just a credit card. So I would pay and pay and pay and pay, and then I called my mom one day, and I wanted her to be proud of me. So it's just like, hey, I've got $4,000 credit on my credit card, and she's like, credit limit or credit debt? I was like, what's debt? And she's like, oh, that's bad. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So it's $4,000 debt then? She's like, that's bad. Why did you do that? I'm like, I thought that was good. And she's like, no, your credit limit at the time it was 8,000. So I was like, okay, well the credit limit's 8,000. That's good, right? And she's like, yes, but you were $4,000 in debt. So I started paying it off maybe like for a month, and then my mom and dad, they were like,
When was this?
last year.
Okay, and then what?
And then they were like, screw it, you're not going to pay this off in time. Give it to me. So my parents took it, and they're still currently paying it off right now.
So there you have it. There you have it. $4,000 with $8,000 credit limit, and now the current balance is $12,000. So understand, there's nothing wrong with not knowing about credit cards. First and foremost, let's get this out the way before I even break down the video. There's nothing wrong with not knowing anything about credit cards. That's why you clicked on this video. There's nothing wrong with the level of knowledge even this young lady had. The issue is the fact that she had that limited amount of knowledge and still had a credit card. She should have done her research, or her mother should have taught her how to properly use the credit card before giving said woman the credit card. And so, like I said, it's nothing, to point and laugh at. It's nothing to, do anything like that about. But it's the internet. It's going to happen. It is what it is. But understand, before you start using something, before you start using anything, you should get a firm understanding of how it's supposed to be used before you go out and use it. And so there's a couple of things that I noticed in this video that I did want to point out. First and foremost, like I said, the young lady's mother should have taught her, or at least made sure she knew how to use the credit card before giving her said credit card. The second thing was, even after the fact, even after a year, she still is a little confused on the terms and if she's using the terms correctly. She did use the term correctly, but when it came to credit limit, but she still was very unsure of the terms, even a year after the fact. And I feel like part of that was her parents taking over the debt and starting to pay it for her. Now she feels like, oh, well, it's out of my hands. I don't have to worry about it. And so she's not taking it as serious as I think she should. I don't know. I didn't watch the whole video, so this is just me looking through the lens of this 2 minute video. So full transparency there. But understand, I feel like part of that was her parents, taking over taking over that debt and, taking care of it for her rather than her, having to deal with that debt and pay off that 12,000. Now it's, oh, well, my parents are going to take care of it. So I don't need to look anymore, into it. She's obviously on the Caleb Hammer show. So obviously she's trying to get some type of help. But understand, after a whole year, I and $12,000 in debt, I'd learn every last term there is to know about credit cards after that mistake, right? Next, understand she spent 4,000 out of the 8,000. That's 50% utilization. What is utilization? How much you spent compared to how much they're, willing to let you use, right? So in her case, she spent 4,000. She was able to spend 8,000. That's 50% utilization, right? They recommend that you only spend 30% of your utilization. And if you really want to, have a higher credit score and really boost your credit score a lot faster, I personally recommend that you keep it under 10%, right? And so 50%, that's no bueno. And now it's at 12,000, so it's over that 8,000. So now she's over 100% utilization with that credit card and is depending on her parents to pay that credit card off. And last but not least, she said it was 4,000, right? But a year later, now it's at 12,000. But her parents took over the payments a month after she started doing the payments. So how did we go from 4,000 to 12,000? Is my question. Are the parents making the minimum payments? Like, that's the other missing piece of the puzzle right there. Is are they, like I said, just making the minimum payments and it's just starting to balloon and the APRs through the roof with that credit card? We're not sure, but that's just that's just one example, family. That's just one example that's out there where it's someone that truly didn't understand how to use a credit card, got a credit card, and ran it up to 4,000. Said, "Hey, hey, dinner on me, right? Dinner on me. I got it." And then she said, "It's just a credit card," as if she wasn't going to have to pay the money back, as if the goal was to spend as much money as possible, and that money's just free money, right? And that's what I talked about in my last episode. Go check it out right here. That's what I'm talking about. People don't understand. Look, credit cards aren't just free money. You're going to have to pay the credit cards back. And so that goes right into my first point or section of this video, why I use credit cards. Understand the money you spend initially, yes, is not your money. It is the bank's money. And so the benefit of that is if there is fraud, if there's something that goes on, if somebody, skims your credit card, whatever the case may be, steals your credit card information, now they're stealing from the bank and not stealing from your personal checking account. And so understand with that, the bank will just shut down the credit or shut down the credit card. You don't have to worry about your money, being locked out or not accessible, all that good stuff. But with a debit card, if they steal that information, now your money is going, especially if they spend that money, that's your money, right? That's your money going to the merchants or, whoever stole your information, taking the money out of the ATM. And so now you got to work with the bank to try to get them to get your money back. And that's just an even longer process. But with credit cards, it's their money to begin with. And so now the banks, when their money's involved, they going to work a lot quicker to get their money back compared to when it's your money, to be completely honest. And so that's the first reason I use credit cards. And then also if, there's fraud or whatever, then you can dispute, right? And so dispute, they'll do the same thing. You dispute it, they'll cancel it. It's even for subscriptions. If you like, hey, I canceled this subscription and they're still charging me, you can dispute it. They'll send your money back and it's all good. You don't have to worry about it. Then the banks will deal with them and get your account completely, dissolved with said company. And then second reason I use credit cards is obviously for the points. The points are great. But understand, the points are great, but if you are carrying a balance month to month and collecting interest on that balance, then it is useless, right? Because the money you're making from credit card points, you're going to end up spending on interest. And so the goal is to not spend money on interest at all. Pay off your credit cards in full every single month. That way all you're getting is straight benefits from these credit cards. And so those are the two reasons why I use credit cards. Next, different types of credit cards. Let's get into it. I got a list that way I don't miss anything. You have charge cards, right? So think of your Amex, you got your black card for the wealthy, you have your gold card, and then you have your platinum card. So these are charge cards. What are charge cards? So charge cards are basically cards where most of the time you have to pay in full every single month. I believe with Amex, they do give you an option to pay over time if you really need to. But generally, with the charge card, you're going to be paying that full balance. You have to pay that full balance off every single month. And so that is a charge card. And then a regular credit card is just revolving credit. We talked about that last video. If you don't know what that means, go check out the last video, right? Rewards credit cards. So these are these are most credit cards. And so rewards are just the credit cards where you get points back. And then you have student credit cards. This is where I started. I started with my Discover Student It credit card. And so these are easier to get into because they understand that students don't have a lot of credit. And so if you're trying to get into the game, then you're either going to want to start with a student, or the next category is a secured credit card. So with the secured credit card, you're saying, hey, here is $500 or $1,000. They give you a line of credit for that amount. That way, if you're dumb enough to run off with it, then they still have your $5 or $1,000, right? And so that's what a secured credit card is. It's just saying, hey, if you don't pay this money back, then we still have your $500. Now, some credit cards do convert over to a regular credit card or to a unsecured credit card after a certain period of time, and then they'll just give you your money back. But, that just depends on the credit card issuer. But that's another way to get into the game is either with a student credit card or a secured credit card for people who are older and not students. Next, you have unsecured, right? And so those are all other credit cards. Understand unsecured just means there's nothing that the bank can take from you physically. Now they can take you to court, right? And then, try to garnish your wages, do all your thing, sue you for the money. They can do that. Next, you have travel, right? And so you got all these different airlines. I'm not going in the climate we in, I'm not going to name no airlines, but you got airline credit cards that you could use. The only thing with these credit cards is you have to be loyal to that particular airline in order to get any benefit from it. If you're the type of person like me, bruh, I want the cheapest or I want the most convenient airline when I'm going somewhere, right? If is only doing 6 a.m., a 6 a.m. flight, and then the next flight isn't until 12 p.m. or, 8 p.m. It's like, bro, nah, if I want to leave at, 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., then I'm going to go to another, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to go to another airline that has those times available. And so I'm not loyal to any airline. I'm going to either get the cheapest or I'm going to get the most convenient for when I want to leave in order to get to my destination, preferably during, check-in. And so those are the different categories or types of credit cards. And so start, with your either secured or start with your student and then work your way up to your rewards credit cards. And then, if you got a business, anything like that, or, you're a high net worth individual, start looking at the charge cards. Next, how do I use my credit cards? First and foremost, set up automatic payments. You'll have a couple of options. You can set it up to where it'll, pay a specific amount you want it to pay, right? So say you want it to pay $20, whatever. Okay, cool. It'll, automatically pay $20 on a certain day. You can set it up to where it pays the minimum balance. Now this, all right, you don't have to worry about collecting a fee because you're paying the minimum. You're guaranteed to pay the minimum balance every single month. But the issue is, if you have any amount over that minimum balance, then that's going to collect interest. So keep that in mind. But that protects you from, spending way too much, or having overdraft fees or anything with your bank account because your credit card company is trying to take out a whole lot more than you have, which shouldn't be an issue. Why? Because you're only spending money that you have. Keep that in mind. Or you could pay in full right before the due date every single month, and you never have to worry about having a balance going month to month. And that's the ideal situation, right? Is that you just pay it in full, whether you do it manually or you set up automatic payments every single month. That way you don't even have to worry or think about it. You're spending money you already have. You're spending money regularly, right? You're not spending money just because it's a credit card. You're spending money regularly, and you don't even have to worry about it. It's all automated. But how do I spend credit cards? Spend money on credit cards. I base which credit cards I get on my lifestyle, right? Initially, when I got my four credit cards, I was a college student. I wasn't traveling, right? I wasn't traveling a lot. There was a period in which I did travel a decent amount, like 2 or 3 times a year, but I'm no, executive or CEO. I'm not traveling 10, 20 times a year. And so I don't need a travel card. So I'm not going to get a travel card just to go one or two places every single year. It doesn't make sense for me. And so for me, as a college student, what did make sense was, okay, as a college student, I got a car. So I'm going to be driving a lot of places. I'm big hungry. So I'm going to eat a lot of food. And what else? What was the third one? And then I'm going to go to the grocery store a lot, right? And so understand that's how I picked my credit cards, was based off things I was already spending my money on. And so that's what you guys want to do, is base what credit cards you get on what you already spend your money on. So for me, the first card I got was my Discover It card. Why? Because I was a college student, and so that was a student credit card. So I got the Discover It card. Is a revolving rewards type credit card. So all that means is every quarter of the year, the 5% category will change. So one month it may be Amazon, and I'll get 5% back for every purchase I get off of Amazon. And then the next, 3 months is going to be Walmart and Target. Okay, cool. Or grocery stores. Okay, cool. Now I get 5% back every time I go to a grocery store. And then the next, so on and so forth. It's like that with Discover, and then it's like that with my Chase credit card. And so the next one I got was the City Custom Cash, which I use for restaurants. I like to eat, right? So with the custom cash, the great thing about that is you basically get to pick your 5% category based off the list that they provide. So they provide you a whole bunch of categories. Out of those categories, you get to pick whichever category you spend the most money on. That category will get 5% back, or 5% back, or 5 points for every dollar you spend in that category. And so that's a great card. That's a great overall card. No annual fees for any of these cards, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's just a great card for people who do a lot of traveling, right? Do a lot of live events. That's a category. Grocery stores, food, list goes on. But that's what I use that's what I use that credit card for, mainly is for restaurant. Amazon Flex, I use that one for travel because they have Chase's travel portal, and so I get 5% back when I spend money on the travel portal. And so use that for that. I also bank with Chase for my checking and savings, and so it was I didn't get approved the first time because I didn't have enough credit history. So I'm not gonna say it's easy to get approved. But once I got that 1 year credit history by having that Discover It card and having student loans, they immediately approved me after that year. And so that's another credit card. Like I said, revolving credit categories every quarter, every quarter of the year. Same situation as Discover. And then I use my Pen Fed for gas. So with the Pen Fed card, it's like 5% back on gas, and then it's either 3 or 2% back at grocery stores. And so that's what I use for grocery stores and gas is that card specifically. And so understand, family, don't spend more than you have. I can't express that enough. Spend what you already spend your money on, right? But now you just get cash back for it, right? Make sure you're saving up for a retirement fund. Make sure you're saving up for an emergency fund. That way you don't have to use the credit card for an emergency. That's the last thing you want to do because 30% interest is nothing to play with. Especially with like the young lady at the beginning of the video, you got $12,000. That amount is going to balloon at a 30% interest rate and you're not paying it off as aggressively as possible. And so understand that amount's going to keep going up and not go down if you don't make payments consistently. So those are the three areas I wanted to talk about: why I use credit cards, the different categories of credit cards, and how I personally use credit cards myself. The next credit card I'm looking at is the Amazon credit card. Why? Because I spend way too much money on Amazon. They do have, every year they always have 1 quarter, whether it's Discover or whether it's Chase. They do have 1 quarter dedicated to Amazon, and so I do use, one of those credit cards for Amazon during that quarter. But I, I, I really just need to go and get the card. That way I can get 5% back year round. And, that way I could just get the point, get the points that I should have already been getting years ago. But I haven't. I've kind of chilled out on getting credit cards as of recently. Over the past 2 or 3 years, I haven't gotten a new credit card because it's just like, bro, let me just build my credit up, take some of these inquiries off the credit report, and then we will move forward with possibly getting another one or two credit cards. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you guys got a lot of value from this episode. Please let me know what you like best about the episode, what information you want to know about credit cards, because this series is going to continue going. There's plenty of things to learn about credit cards. So if there is anything I missed or anything that was confusing, right, let me know down in the chat, right? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll be sure to respond to the best of my ability and correct those things, or just make a whole nother video about the question or statement. So with that, y'all take it easy. Peace.